Okay, so I currently have 3 phones right now, but I can explain. A few weeks ago, I got the Galaxy Fold 3 as a replacement for my Pixel 6 Pro, which was a total nightmare. I made videos about both of those devices. The Fold was and is a really cool device, but there were a few drawbacks that made me want to consider other phones. And the first phone I considered was the S22 Plus. The reason for this was that I was able to get it on eBay for $735 for the 256 gig variant. To understand why I wanted the Plus, you would need to understand my primary cons with the Fold 3. The biggest con for me with the Fold 3 is that most apps just aren't designed to support it. Games will zoom in and will actually cut parts of the screen off if you don't force them into 16:9 ratio. But if you force them into 16:9 ratio, you almost have the same screen size as a normal smartphone. A lot of the things I don't like about the Fold 3 are not Samsung's fault. They can't force Android apps to work on tablets. I do think making devices as compelling as the Fold 3 will hopefully make more app developers want to support this device. But in general, I found the default behavior of a lot of apps to be pretty frustrating. And so I started defaulting to opening most of my apps in pop-up view, which is definitely a little clunkier than just opening them. So Instagram, for example, which is an app I do like to use a lot, it wants to look like this by default. So I tend to use it in pop-up, but that means I had to slide it out from the side and then drag it to the middle, and then it becomes pretty usable. However, the other con that really started to bug me was the crease. I really thought I didn't mind the crease at first, but I started to notice the reflections all the time. The first day I used this phone, I wasn't working. I had the day off. But when I started working and realizing how it reflected light in normal situations, and then when I brought it to a friend's place for an outdoor gathering and saw how the sun was constantly reflecting on it, it really did start to bug me in a way that it hadn't bugged me before. And finally, the other really big con for me is literal. It's just a very big and heavy device. I have wimpy baby hands. There's no better way to put it. I've been playing too many video games, and when I use this phone a lot and play video games, my hands just get sore. I don't know if it's because I'm almost 30 and I'm just becoming weak. I don't know. But I do know that this phone, along with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, both hurt my hands so much with normal usage that it makes it hard to want to use it, either in the folded form or in the wide form. Even though the weight is really well distributed in the wide form, because it's a cool phone, you want to use it a lot, but because of the weight, 270-ish grams, it does start to really hurt. And to be clear, the Fold 3 is an amazing device. Pretty much everything I said in my original video is true, and if you have a 3 or if you're waiting for a 4, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. If you're comfortable with the crease, the trade-offs are pretty huge. The multitasking is actually awesome. In my initial review, I actually think I underrated the multitasking. Between split screen, pop-up windows, the ability to have a video floating, which is also true on the other Samsung devices, there is something about using this device and multitasking that's just really compelling. If you mostly just want to watch videos and you're okay with the light and the crease, it's a really nice viewing experience. I actually think most reviewers underrated the capabilities of the webcam, or of the selfie camera rather, and having those pixels be covered. Because when you're watching videos, you're not really focusing on the webcam or on the selfie camera. I actually find it's a really awesome blend-in feature, and I only really notice it on really bright backgrounds. But yeah, like I said earlier, I did really start to notice the cons for me of the crease and the worry of the fragility. There were just enough things about this phone that I realized it couldn't be my daily driver yet. But to be clear, that doesn't mean it's not something that's great. And I think if you can get it at the right price, like I did, the 1200, it dropped down to 1080 on Prime Day. If you can get it in that range and you're comfortable with the trade-offs, this is a really cool device. It just ended up not being the right device for me. And so the next one I wanted to try was the S22 Plus, because it was kind of a gut reaction. You know, if the Fold 3 was too heavy, I want the lightest phone. If the Fold 3 had weird aspect ratios for apps, then I wanted the phone that felt the most like an iPhone, because the iPhone is what most apps are designed for, sadly. If the Fold 3 had last gen cameras, I wanted newer gen cameras. However, I started to realize that for me, as a power user, which I would consider myself, the trade-offs of the S22 Plus were actually not worth it. What you need to understand about me is that I've owned multiple Notes. I owned the Note 8, the Note 9, the Note 10. I skipped the Note 20 Ultra. My experience with Samsung phones is largely with the Note, and the Note, at least the versions I buy, the 10 Plus, the 8, the 9, they all had very high pixel density on their screens, as does the Fold 3. And because of my weird eyes, I have a reading prescription and a distance prescription, and so I really notice pixel density on big screens and on small screens. Even though I need glasses, I have very sharp vision, and it really didn't take me too long to realize the pixel density of this phone was too low for the type of experience I like to have on a phone. Another important thing to note, no pun intended, is that I ordered the S22 Plus a week and a half ago, but it was super delayed. And in that time, Amazon dropped the price of the S22 Ultra to $900 or $840 for the base model and $909 for the 256 gig, 12 gig of RAM model. At that point, the price difference between these two phones that I paid was about $150. And so that meant that upgrading to this model, which I think is normally $13 MSRP, was only a $150 difference instead of like $500 or $600. And so I ordered one of these on Prime Day, and because the shipping was so fast, this got here the same day the Plus did. And so it was pretty easy for me. You know, I had the Plus first, and I spent 3 or 4 hours with it. And then when this got here, I was able to basically A/B test them. Using Samsung's Swap app, I was able to clone all 3 of these phones across each other, basically, which is really cool and a feature that I really admire. But using this phone, I started to realize, one, like a lot of reviewers have said, it's essentially the continuation of the Note lineage. And because of that, this is a very familiar and comfortable phone for me. It's also actually very similar in shape and size to the Pixel 6 Pro, which was honestly a phone I loved until it really just fell apart on me and the software got so bad that I had to return it. The weight is heavy for sure. This is essentially in between the Fold 3 and the S22 Plus. But because the sides are curved, it's actually nicer in the hand. And so I started to realize it wasn't just about weight with these phones. The reason that the iPhone 13 Pro Max hurt my hands was because it was heavy and sharp. This is nearly as heavy as the 13 Pro Max, but it's curved. And there are sharp points at the bottom and in the corners. And don't get me wrong, I feel those. But because most of the time I'm using the phone, I'm holding it on the sides, this is actually a softer, nicer user experience. Along with that, the cameras on this are no joke. I haven't had enough time to go out and do a phone camera comparison across all of these. And because of my return windows, I'm probably not going to make that video. I did binge a ton of videos. So Super Saf, Mr. Who's the Boss, MKBHD, Canoopsy, you name it. There's so many people doing awesome videos on the cameras of these phones, so I definitely recommend checking those out. I will echo the sentiment that the S22 Ultra is the best camera package on the market for still photography in a phone. Video is still the iPhone's domain, and I really do wish Samsung would catch up. I don't feel like enough reviewers except for Mr. Who's the Boss are talking about this, but the 4K video quality on this is super weird and like over sharpened, and I feel like it looks worse than my Note 9 did. So hopefully that's something they can fix in software. But for still photography, which is most of how I use my phone because I have, a Lumix S5 and a G85 for video, this honestly is better than the Pixel for me because of the versatility and the variety of lenses and the general overall quality of the photography experience and the viewing experience of the photos. Other reviewers have noted that both the S22 Plus and the S22 Ultra have really bright screens. I'm in Oregon, and as you can see, it's 65 degrees and cloudy today in July, so I haven't tested this outdoor experience, but as someone who wears sunglasses a lot because I have blue eyes and dry eyes or whatever, I don't know why so much this video is about my eyes today, but because of my weird eyes, I wear sunglasses a lot outside most of the year, and so I will appreciate that brightness, much like Super Saf. So it's funny, I actually expected that when I made this video that it would be called the Goldilocks phone, and it would be about how the S22 Plus was the perfect middle ground, but I'm a weird power user. I've used the Notes for a long time. I love high pixel density. I love good cameras. I don't super care about the S Pen, but I tend to use it if I have it. And so yeah, this is going to be the Goldilocks device for me, even though it's actually the Ultra flagship, because that just comes down to the type of user I am. That said, I do note that I paid $909 on a super sale for this. I would not recommend ever paying MSRP for a Samsung phone, and that probably means Samsung will never send me phones, and that's okay. But they drop in price so fast that I do recommend, much like my Note 10 video from last year and the Fold 3 video from a few weeks ago, making sure you get a good deal on MSRP. If you buy in used or open box at a used price and then do trade-ins, you'll always be kind of on a saving money cycle. Whereas if you just buy them outright, unless your company is paying for it or it's some kind of write-off for you, I would not recommend buying these at MSRP, at least launch MSRP. I also would not recommend buying fan editions or A series phones. Instead, just get the previous flagship. In my opinion, it doesn't really make sense to get a cut down phone, but your mileage may vary, your use case may vary, and what you like in a phone might be different than what I like in a phone. And in that case, maybe the A series or the fan editions are better for you, and feel free to ignore me. I'm literally just a guy on the internet. So yes, I am going to keep the S22 Ultra for now. When it comes to phones, I've lately been thinking of myself as more of like a tester. For me, I'm just trying out technology. It's something I've loved doing since I was younger, but now I'm in a financial position where I can make money doing it with YouTube, and because of my day job and because of return windows and all these various rotating things, the stars have aligned to let me try out a lot of different tech and to show you this tech. If you saw my Fold 3 or wait for Fold 4 video and you're disappointed that I'm not keeping the Fold, know that it is a great phone and it's a great tablet and it is going to be the right device for a lot of people. I do think now it might be worth waiting because the Fold 4 is so close, it'll probably drop the price of the Fold 3. But if you can get a really good Fold 3 price and you're not interested in better cameras or a smaller hinge or a decreased crease, then maybe pick up a Fold 3 if you're okay with the wait. Make sure you get it from somewhere with a return window, whether it's eBay or Amazon, what have you. Make sure you can try it out and return it like I did. My initial impression was, oh my God, this is the future. And my follow-up impression was, this will be amazing in the future. For me, the S22 Ultra is amazing right now. It's the pinnacle of modern smartphone design, and it's the phone I imagine I'm going to be using for a while. If you ask me who the S22 Plus is for, it's for someone who really wants an iPhone-like experience or who is not a power user and is comfortable with the trade-offs. Again, buying this open box on eBay, I paid a lot less than MSRP. This is the 256 gig configuration, which I think is like $1,100 or something, and I paid $740 right now. If you wait on this phone, it will only get cheaper. If you don't need the newest cameras, you could also look at the 21 or 20 generations. Before I was making what I make at my day job, and before YouTube was paying ad revenue, I definitely tended to go for a year or two old phone. I still think there's a lot of merit to that, and these phones are getting longer and longer software support, and so you definitely don't need to buy this newest generation either. Even at discounts, they're gonna be cheaper down the line, and all technology tends to get cheaper over time as it gets replaced by newer devices. So just because you're seeing me with these new phones, don't think that means you should go do that too, unless you want to. If any of these seem like the right phone for you, I do have affiliate links below, so consider using those if you want to help support the channel. Also consider following the sign, liking and subscribing. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you for watching. I will catch you soon. And I promise for my music folks out there, more music stuff is coming. I just wanted to talk about these phones before I had to return 2 of them. All right, I'll see you soon.